Florence Nightingale was born on May 12, 1820. She was a celebrated English nurse, writer and statistician. An Anglican, Florence believed that God had called her to be a nurse. She came to prominence for her pioneering work in nursing during the Crimean War, where she tended to wounded soldiers. She was dubbed the Lady with the Lamp, after her habit of making rows at night. Florence Nightingale was born into a rich upper-class, well-connected British family at Villa Colombaia near Porta Romana at Bellosguardo in Florence, Italy, and was named after the city of her birth. Inspired by what she took as a call from God in February 1837, while at Embley Park, Florence announced her decision to enter nursing in 1844, despite the intense anger and distress of her mother and sister. Nightingale worked hard to educate herself in the art and science of nursing, in spite of opposition from her family and the restricted societal code for affluent young English women. Nightingale was courted by politician and poet Richard Monckton Miles, 1st Baron Houghton, but she rejected him, convinced that marriage would interfere with her ability to follow her calling to nursing.
Nightingale arrived early in November 1854 at Selimil barracks in Scutari. She and her nurses found wounded soldiers being badly cared for by our work medical staff in the face of official indifference. Medicines were in short supply, hygiene was being neglected, and mass infections were common, many of them fatal. There was no equipment to process food for the patients. At the beginning of the 20th century, it was asserted that Nightingale reduced the death rate from 42% to 2%, either by making improvements in hygiene herself or by calling for the Sanitary Commission. Nightingale continued believing the death rates were due to poor nutrition and supplies and overworking of the soldiers. It was not until after she returned to Britain and began collecting evidence before the Royal Commission on the Health of the Army that she came to believe that most of the soldiers at the hospital were killed by poor living conditions. This experience influenced her later career when she advocated sanitary living conditions as of great importance. Consequently, she reduced death in the army during peacetime and turned attention to the sanitary design of hospitals. While she was in Crimea, on 29 November 1855, a public meeting to give recognition to Florence Nightingale for her work in the war led to the establishment of the Nightingale Fund for the Training of Nurses. There was an outpouring of generous donations. By 1859, Nightingale had £45,000 at her disposal from the Nightingale Fund to set up the Nightingale Training School at St. Thomas Hospital on 9 July 1860. The first trained Nightingale nurses began work on 16 May 1865 at the Liverpool Workhouse Infirmary. She also campaigned and raised funds for the Royal Buckinghamshire Hospital in Aylesbury, near her family home.
Nightingale was an advocate for the improvement of care and condition in the military and civilian hospitals in Britain. She wrote books to spread her knowledge. Among her popular books are Notes on Hospitals, Notes on Nursing, Notes on Matters Affecting the Health and Efficiency and Hospital Administration of the British Army. One of Nightingale's signal achievements was the introduction of trained nurses into the workhouse systems in England and Ireland from the 1860s onwards. This meant that sick paupers were no longer being cared for by other able-bodied paupers, but by properly trained nursing staff. In 1883, Nightingale was awarded the Royal Red Cross by Queen Victoria. In 1907, she became the first woman to be awarded the Order of Merit. In 1808, she was given the Honorary Freedom of the City of London. Her birthday is now celebrated as International CFS Awareness Day.
From 1857 onwards, Nightingale was intermittently bedridden and suffered from depression. A recent biography cites brucellosis and associated spondylitis as the cause. An alternative explanation for her depression is based on her discovery after the war that she had been mistaken about the reasons for the high death rate. There is, however, no documentary evidence to support this theory. Despite her symptoms, she remained phenomenally productive in social reform. During her bedridden years, she also did pioneering work in the field of hospital planning, and her work propagated quickly across Britain and the world. Although much of Nightingale's work improved the lot of women everywhere, she had little respect for women in general, preferring the friendship of powerful men. She often referred to herself in the masculine. And some scholars of Nightingale's life believe that she remained chaste for her entire life, perhaps because she felt an almost religious calling to her career.
Florence Nightingale had exhibited a gift for mathematics from an early age and excelled in the subject under the tutorship of her father. Later, Nightingale became a pioneer in the visual presentation of information and statistical graphics. Among other things, she used the pie chart. It was at the time a relatively novel method of presenting data.
Indeed, Nightingale is described as a true pioneer in the graphical representation of statics, and is credited with developing a form of the pie chart now known as the polar area diagram, in order to illustrate seasonal sources of patient mortality in the military field hospital she managed. Nightingale called a compilation of such diagrams a coxcomb. She made extensive use of coxcombs to present reports on the nature and magnitude of the conditions of medical care in the Crimean War to members of parliament and civil servants who would have been unlikely to read or understand traditional statistical reports.
On 13 August 1910, at the age of 90, she died peacefully in her sleep in her room at 10 South Street, Park Lane. She is buried in the graveyard at St. Margaret Church in East Wellow, Hampshire.